Happy October, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Justina, and here I like to make, create, and inspire fun art things with you through my DIYs. And it is finally October season. Happy Halloween, everyone. And I thought it would be perfect to start off the October season with my Beetlejuice bathroom DIY makeover. If you have been following my channel, back in June, I had made over my downstairs guest bathroom. It was a two-part series, but in today's video, it is going to be start to finish of my guest bathroom. I thought that would be a perfect video to start off the October season. This is a lengthy video, but it is well worth it. So make sure you grab your spooky beverage and a spooky snack, get comfortable, and watch me make over my guest bathroom. But before we get started, friends, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you subscribe today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free. But don't forget to click on the bell notification so YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family, where we do a lot of DIYs with an artistic twist. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for clicking on today's video and coming along with me once again to make over my guest bathroom. I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here, but don't forget to do all of the YouTube things down below, which is like, comment, and share it to at least one friend. It does help out my channel. Now, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it and let's art today. So here is our downstairs guest bathroom. It's just a toilet, a little sink, and a mirror in there. It is not the biggest, and this is a newer build, so everything is pretty much gray and bland. Now, since everything is brand new, we aren't going to tear down walls and rearrange anything big. I just want to give it a new life. I like where everything's at. It's a pretty decent size, like I said, and it's a nice blank slate to add some color and some decor into it and really make it our own. Now, this is going to be probably a two-parter or maybe a three-parter. I'm trying to condense it as much as possible, but filming in a tight space is really hard, and I really wanted to make sure that I show you guys what I am doing and creating. Once again, this is going to be a Beetlejuice themed bathroom. We have plenty of stuff that we have been collecting through the years and also been gifted through the years, and we absolutely love it. If you have been following my channel, you may know that already. Now, the bathroom does have a couple of challenges because we do have a slanted ceiling because it is located underneath our staircase. Also, the size of it kind of makes it hard to try to make everything evenly as much as possible. But to really get started, I am going to start off with taking things out of the bathroom. I am going to take off the cases from the light switches, the plug area, and also my mirror area. Now, I am not handy. I don't know all the names of the tools. I do know this is a screwdriver, and I'm just going to unscrew the screws from the wall and remove that cap from our light switch. I do this because it's easier to paint on the walls when everything is off of it, and if I make a mistake, when I place back those caps, you won't be able to see it. The funny thing that we have noticed with these new builds is that all of the holes behind the walls do not have a straight cut. I don't know if they do that on purpose or they're in a rush to build all of these houses at once. But when you take out all of the screws and the caps and look behind the wall, there are a bunch of holes that just seem a little bit bigger than necessary. Here are the screws that were holding on the toilet paper roll, and I've noticed that it was kind of hard to get those screws out. I don't know what it was until after I took my time and really just unscrewed it, that it was a really long screw in a decent size hole. Now, probably because the stud was really far back, However, I just felt like these holes were unnecessary, so I did have to plug those and add some spackling on top so you won't be able to see it. Next, I needed to pull out these plugs from the mirror section, and I really didn't know how to do that, so I actually YouTubed it, and the best way that YouTube showed me is to take the screw that came with it, drill it in just a little bit, not too much, so that it hooks onto that little cap area. Then you're going to take another piece of wood or a piece of drywall, whatever you have on hand, and put it up against the wall so that you take your hammer and then pull that plug out. As you see here, I'm just using a painter stick. That's because you don't want to damage your wall with your hammer. I was so happy when this worked out for me because it's just one of those things that you don't think you're able to do by yourself, but once you do it by yourself, it is a nice accomplishment. We'll continue removing all of the plugs, and then I will fill up any holes with some spackling, sand it down so that we can get ready to paint. I will first start off with this paint. It is just called black, and I am using a semi-gloss paint in the bathroom. I like using semi-gloss in the bathroom. That's because if there's any splatters or spills or anything that happens up against the wall for any reason, it is a quick and easy cleanup because you can just wipe it right down without the worry of removing the paint. First thing I like to do is to cut all of my walls, which means I take a little edger right here, paintbrush, and I'm just going to get the edges where usually a paint roller cannot reach, and just cut all of the edges. Try to get as close as I can to the baseboard without getting paint on that, but even if I do, I can always add white right on top of it to clean it up. Now you can always use painter's tape to get clean edges, but I really didn't want to go through all of that hassle. Sometimes just putting up painter's tape is just a job in itself, and usually can take up to hours to get everything right and even and laid out, and I just did not want to do that. So I am going to take my time and just start painting, making sure that I go as slow as possible in certain areas so that I don't make a mess. And even if I do, I can always go back with a different color and clean up any harsh edges that I have. I believe the only time I actually did use painter's tape will be on the back side of my door, which I'm not sure if I show you or not. We'll get there when we get there. However, I did use a little painter's tape just to make sure everything was nice and straight. So I will continue cutting all of my edges. Now I'm just using this on the bottom half of my bathroom. That is because I have a different design for the top half and even on my ceiling, which I am super excited to share with you. But I will continue cutting all of the edges, and as you see here, I'm going super slow on the bottom, and this video is sped up just a bit so that it doesn't take hours and hours. Now here's all my cut lines, and I do wipe my brush onto the wall too to give every excess of that paint off of that brush because waste not, want not. So that's why it looks like it is a little brushed on. I found this little roller in my painting stash. I believe I purchased it from Dollar Tree for $1.25. It came with 2 rollers and some gloves and a painter tray, and I'm just testing it out. Now it's not the best thing, but it did get the job done. As you see here, this is just one coat of it, and as you see there in the corner, that is a laser leveler, and I just use it to get as straight lines as best as possible because, like I mentioned, I'm only doing the bottom half of this bathroom in that black paint so far. I wanted to also blend in my door, so I am going over my door with that black paint just in that same exact area. Once again, I am using that laser leveler to get as close as a straight line as I possibly can to meet in the halfway. Now I try not to be as perfect, but I do tend to have a little bit of OCD, so it does bother me that it is not perfect. However, we are going to cover those lines later up so that even if I did make a mistake, you won't be able to see it. I also painted underneath my sink, and I try to go as slow as possible. Now it's not perfect under there, but I don't think anybody is going to squat down and look under to make sure that I got everything as lined up and as perfect as it possibly can, but I do try to make it as perfect as I possibly can. And I did have to let this dry completely overnight and give everything a second coat the next day. Here is how the room looks after I have all of the coats put on. And I did realize the next day that I had a few touch-ups that I needed to fix, but that was a quick and easy fix. All I had to do was take a paintbrush and go over it really quickly. Now this paint does have primer on it, so I really didn't need to prime anything, but it did take a while for it to really soak up on my door, and that is because my door was already painted in a semi-gloss paint, so I really had to make sure to go over it a couple times to not make those lines of the paintbrush and the roller so pronounced. You want to try to make it as even as possible so that when it dries, you won't be able to see that it was rolled or brushed on. I absolutely loved how my door turned out because it kind of blends in with the wall. Like I said before, I do have a few touch-ups that I need to do, especially on my door around the little hinges. Now I did have to paint behind my toilet. That was a hard time as well, but I did it with a paintbrush and just had to kind of finagle around it. Now we are going to work on the top half of my wall here, and this is the part which was a little tricky because I wasn't too sure what I actually wanted to do on the slant, but I just realized, let me just paint it with all one color so that when I add my design on top of it, it's already painted and primed. So my next color here is just a plain white color. I'm taking that piece that helps you open up that paint. I did shake it really well, and I do stir my paints for at least a minute to 2 minutes just to make sure that everything is nice and incorporated because they have been sitting for a little while. Once again, all of my paints have primer in it, so I really don't need to prime anything, but I will cut in my edges once again using that paintbrush and a little bit of paint and just cut in all of my lines. Now, I know I did things a little bit backwards. It's always good to work from top to bottom, so I heard, but I'm just going in a direction that just feels comfortable with me. So that is why I started at the bottom. After I cut in all my lines, I did use a real paint roller here, and I did roll on the top portion of the bathroom. Now, once again, I did give everything 2 coats of paint, but I let it completely dry overnight before adding the second coat. That way it really had time to soak in and dry evenly. Here's how it looks, and I know it's really hard to see here, but if you look at my ceiling, because I didn't paint the top portion of my ceiling, that is the original color, and next to it is a white color, which is now the new color of my bathroom. And I know it's just a little bit of difference, but it has brightened up this bathroom so much with that white paint. Before it was just really gray and dingy and kind of gloomy. Next is my favorite part. I took a pencil and I started drawing in my design. The reason why I did not paint my ceiling is because I have a different color paint that is going there, and to help with that, I am drawing on these little squiggly lines because I am going to have paint dripping down onto my wall. Since this is a Beetlejuice bathroom, I'm pretty sure you can guess what color those drips are going to be. But before we get there, I did have to draw in all of those drips all around my bathroom. And I do apologize for the video being so shaky. It is really hard to trace or draw on your walls, hold a camera, and be on top of a ladder because I am pretty short and my ceilings are a little bit high. So I did ask for help. So it's still a little bit shaky, but you can see what I am doing here. I will continue drawing creating all of these drip marks all around my bathroom until I got the design that I absolutely like. And I know it's hard to see, but I did want to show you that I did go all around my bathroom. Now there are parts where the drips are longer than the others, and here is where I was contemplating on the design over this slanted wall. I will also be adding other designs underneath this dripping design, so I wanted to make sure that the second design will make its way a little bit up that wall. Now for the color of those drips, I have another paint color here, and there's a little sample right on top of it, but this is how the paint turned out. This is a lime green color that I absolutely love. Now I believe we got our paint from Home Depot if you are interested on where we're getting it. Now I am taking a really small paintbrush and I am going around all of those lines that I have created and making sure to first cut them in, so it's almost like making a outline so that I can paint in with a fatter brush later. Also, as I am filling in those drip marks, I tend to go over the lines that I've drawn in. That is because I keep changing my mind and I like to change the shape of it. I really take a step back to make sure that it looks good on the wall, and if I need to fix anything, I just go back up onto the ladder with my paintbrush and change it along the way. After I have the outline, I did go into some places with that small paintbrush and filled it in, but then I left some of it white to fill it in with a different paintbrush. Here's how it looks after I outlined pretty much everything. I did remove the cap to my vent, but the AC vent was really high and I didn't have the proper ladder, so I was just waiting for my parents to come over so I can use a taller ladder, so that will be filled in later on. But here is how it looks so far after I just outlined the areas that I needed to, so that we can then fill it in with a proper paintbrush. I am going in with a smaller roller at first because I just really wanted to make sure that I had a good handle on everything and that I don't go past the little drip marks that we have created. This makes it easier for me, but I can also use a bigger paintbrush just to get it done a little faster. However, I just really wanted to take my time and enjoy the process, which this was really fun, but my body was super sore after going up and down the ladder for days on end. But however, I really had a good time making over this bathroom. Now all of my paints do have primer into it, so I didn't have to prime it beforehand. However, I did go in with a white primer ahead of time in part 1 for some of the walls just to make it even, so that I can create a different design on top of it later that I will show you. After everything was filled in, this is how it looks. It did take me about 2 good generous amount of coats to get it really opaque in the way I wanted it, and once again I needed to wait for a taller ladder on this day to really get close to the light and to take off my AC vent. Once again, I do apologize for the rotation of the camera. It is a really small space, so videoing it in this area is kind of difficult, but I am learning on the way. After I had all of that done, I did wait for it to dry so that we can move on to the next part. I wanted my walls to have black and white stripes, just like Beetlejuice's suit, so I went in with my laser leveler and the same black paint that we used on the walls on the bottom portion, and I'm taking that small paintbrush once again and I am just outlining the line that I see on the wall. Now it is not super perfect nor sharp, but it is as close as I can possibly get it. I really took my time, and this part of the wall really did take me hours because I am going super slow. I did speed up this part of the video so you don't have to see me in real time. However, I did take my time and make sure that I got as close as to the line as possible without going over and trying to make it as even as possible so it looks like a perfect straight line. Each one of my stripes is about 12 inches wide so that I can get an even amount around the bathroom. And just like any other DIY project that I do, I did have to label it B for black and W for white. So I went all around the room with a pencil and just wrote those letters at the bottom so I know not to paint that one in the wrong color. After I had one side done, I went on the other side and did the exact same thing, taking my time making sure that I have those straight lines as even as possible. Then I took that same paintbrush and I started outlining the drip marks if they were in the same stripe as the black color, and I am making sure to go around it and really sharpening those lines with the black paint so that we can get a nice even look. Here is how it looks with just the outline, and I really went over the edges a couple of times to make it really opaque. That's because when I go in with the roller, I don't have to go as closely to the edge as I need to, just because I added so many layers on top of it already. Next, I'm going in once again with that small roller, and I'm just going to fill in those stripes. Now I can go all the way down since the bottom half of my bathroom is in this color already, so I really don't have to worry about that. I will continue adding a layer of that black paint on there, and then I will work on the next stripe. Once I'm done with the next stripe, I then go back over the first stripe to give it a second layer so that I can work double time. Here is how it looks once it's filled in, and like I mentioned before, I will continue doing the same thing completely around the whole entire bathroom. I will start with the outlines and then I will fill it in. Here's how it looks after all of the lines were painted in, and I am super thrilled on how it turned out. Like I mentioned before, it is not perfect, but for my eye it is pretty close, and I can't believe I did this all by hand without painter's tape, which probably made me take a little bit longer than necessary, but well worth it. Now that my paint is dry, it is now time to add some trim into the bathroom. I bought 3 pieces of trim. I believe they are about 9 feet long, which is perfect for the perimeter of my bathroom. Where the lower half of the bathroom meets the topper half of the bathroom, there is like a line that is not perfect, so I wanted to cover it with trim. I finally get to use my little miter saw, which was perfect for this DIY. There was some wiggle room for learning, but at the end of the day, it really did cut it nice and straight where I needed it to cut. These pieces of trim are so thin anyways that you pretty much can cut them, probably with some miter shears as well. After I have all of my cuts made, I then took that same exact black paint and painted just the front portions of it because you're not going to see the back of it. I did only give it one coat of this paint, and if some of the wood was showing, it was okay because I needed to fill in the nail marks later, so I knew that I had to make a second or third coat afterwards. After I had them painted, I needed some time to figure out how I was going to nail it onto the wall. So I took some painter's tape, as you see here, and I wedged it onto the board and the wall so I know exactly if it was even and where I needed to cut. Then I took a stud finder and I had to find each one of the studs. Now I think my stud finder is really old and it's not working the best, so I did make 2 mistakes, but once I found the studs, it started to go in perfectly. I don't have a nail gun, so I had to do it the old-fashioned way, which was a nail and a hammer, and this looks scary looking back at it, but trust me, I got them all in without any casualties. Now next I needed to fill in some of those holes. I placed this nail way too close to the edge, so it did split the wood. However, I have some wood filler and I'm just going to fill it in along with all of the nail holes that we created earlier too. This is also why I wasn't too worried about adding the second coat on until after I was done hammering it in. Next, it is my favorite time, which is decorating the bathroom. I got all of the painting out of the way, so it is now time. As you see here, I am drilling in 2 holes into my wall because we had received a shelf for Christmas and I've been holding on to it for a long while now, and I am finally getting around to putting it into my bathroom. I first pre-drilled some holes and then I'm adding some anchors into it because this is drywall and the placement of the shelf is not near a stud, so I'm just hammering those all the way in. I then take my screws and then add them into our anchors that we just hammered in, but I make sure that I don't go all the way in because we need a little lip of the screw to hold in the shelf. After I have it where I like it, I then add the shelf right onto those screws, and then I take my leveler to make sure that it is nice and even. Anywhere that it wasn't even, I just tightened one end to really make it hold into place, but it was pretty much even for the most part. Then I'm taking the drill again and just securing it into the wall, making sure that the screws are holding onto the shelf. Now, it is kind of hard to see because pretty much the whole bathroom is almost black, but this is how it looks onto the wall. And yes, I haven't got around to sanding down my trim just yet, but I did do it off camera. After I had that in place, it is now time to hang our new mirror. Once again, I received this as a gift for Christmas and we've been holding on to it for a while because I knew the perfect location, which is this bathroom. I believe it was purchased at Ross. Now, I had to really take my time and make sure that it was as even as possible. I had to use my laser leveler here to make sure that I had it centered, and I'm taking a Sharpie marker and making little X's to where I needed to put my screws into the wall. If you have been following my channel, you may know that I have a really hard time measuring. I have to do it like 15 times and make sure that it is as even as possible because I second guess myself all the time. But I did do that. I measured so many times, and then once I was done measuring and made my X's, I'm taking my drill once again and making pre-holes so that we can put another anchor. I got these heavy duty anchors for this mirror because the mirror is pretty heavy, and I made sure that it was nice and secured. I even pulled on the mirror to make sure that it wouldn't come down. So hopefully I did the right thing by getting really better quality anchors. After I have my anchors in the wall, I hammered those in, and then I'm taking once again another screw and screwing that into the anchor, but making sure I don't go all the way back. Then all that was left to do was to hang the mirror, which was really scary, but I managed to get it up. This is how it looks when it is hung up, and yes, I know the trim is right behind it. However, it makes it more secure because when I was shaking it and pulling on it, it didn't move with that trim behind it. Now it's time for decorating. It is now time to add all of the goodie stuff into the bathroom to really make this bathroom pop. Like I mentioned on part 1, we have been collecting stuff over the years, for many years, of little trinkets here and there so that we can add it to our home, which, if you haven't known, this is our first house that we ever purchased, and we are so thrilled that we can decorate it the way that we actually want to decorate it without breaking rules or worrying about landlords and all of that stuff. So I am just filling up these shelves with all of the little trinket things, and yes, I do change it up about 3 or 4 different times to get it the way I like to decorate. However, here is just an idea of how I started to decorate. We have these little Beetlejuice themed stuff. I purchased these, I believe, at Five Below, and if you go right now, I'm pretty sure they're still available. I believe they're $5 each, and I thought that little rubber ducky was so cute. My little one got it for my spouse. Then I'm going to start hanging up photos. My spouse also is a awesome photographer, and they took these photos up in New York when they were visiting and printed them in black and white, and I've been using them in our decor ever since. They are gorgeous and it goes perfectly with this bathroom. And you will notice that I use push pins for a lot of our artwork on our walls. It's just easier for me this way. I am using a push pin for this hand that I purchased from Amazon. 3 came in a pack along with some candles also, and I absolutely love them. Each hand is a different type of hand and their positioning. Now for this little hack here, I put a towel onto a little hair tie, and then I'm going to wrap it around our little hand here. Now I must give credit where credit is due, and that happens to be my spouse, because I really wanted these hands to hold a towel, so after you're washing your hands you can dry your hands on a towel, and they suggested that, and it is a perfect way to display that towel. Next, I'm just going to continue adding some artwork and decor along the walls of the bathroom. We've had this Beetlejuice poster for a couple of years now, and I thought it would be perfect for this bathroom. Once again, I am using a push pin for that sign. Next, I have this candle holder that I found at a thrift store, and I just hung that right next to our poster. Then I was contemplating if I should put a green candle or a white candle, and I stuck with the white candle. Lastly, my spouse painted me this Bob painting, and I thought it would be perfect right next to the mirror, and that completes our bathroom makeover. Again, here is a recap of how our bathroom started off with. Now, there is no shame on having a new bathroom with gray walls. However, that's just not our aesthetic. And for us, it was just making us a little bit gray and gloomy. So I really wanted to give it another life. Once again, we do have a new build, so everything is builder grade. So I got rid of that mirror and added my own. And as you saw throughout the video, I painted all of these gray walls in black and white and a bright green color, which I absolutely love. And this is how our new bathroom turned out. Our new bathroom makeover. It is our guest bathroom that is downstairs, so people will come and use it all the time. However, we absolutely loved how it turned out. It still baffles me that I have this idea in my head, but I really can't explain it. I usually try to sketch it out onto a piece of paper so I can try to explain it to my spouse. They are always so supportive of any ideas I come up with, but to see it come to life, it really just hits on a different level, and I'm just super happy how it turned out. Now, even though I technically am calling this finished, the bathroom is really not completed. Being a homeowner, as a lot of you may know, technically no project is really completed because there's always ways to improve it or add to it, and I want to add more to it. I want to get a rug in here and make a little table, but nonetheless it is completed so that we can finally use the bathroom again. Now, as you may see, I did add some highlights to the drip marks up above, and then we added some of our own artwork that me and my spouse have made throughout the years. We have some sandworms that we've created from another YouTuber that teaches you how to paint. I will hopefully make sure to link it down in the description box below. And we also have other trinkets in our Halloween decor that I have to rummage through to add to the walls, but this is pretty much all of it so far. Thank you, friends, for sticking around with me and coming on to this little project of my downstairs bathroom makeover. I really had a blast, and I know it took longer than usual, but this was a lot of work to do for one person, but I'm glad it is finally finished and you guys are able to see it. I would love to know what you think of about my bathroom down in the comment section below. Remember, friends, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, but don't forget to click on the bell notification so that YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. But don't forget to do all of the YouTube things down below, which is like, comment, and share it to at least one friend. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy, and as always, I will see you in the next one.